The San Francisco 49ers and Brock Purdy came to an agreement yesterday on his contract for the next 5 years, giving him $265 million, $100 million fully guaranteed at signing, and $181 million in total guarantees throughout the life of the contract. Um, I wasn't really surprised at the amount. I wasn't really surprised at the length of the contract. I feel like this probably puts both Brock Purdy and the San Francisco 49ers in the best position possible. It gets the deal done pretty early. We aren't even fully into training or mini camps yet, and this deal has been done. We've seen, not just with quarterbacks, but with a lot of position players and defensive players over the last decade or 20 plus years, where guys will hold out and guys will kind of make a scene about their contract situation. And this didn't get to the point with Brock Purdy. And I guess that's not really a surprise either that it didn't get to that point, because I feel like we always felt like this was inevitable, that a contract was going to get done. Brock Purdy was going to be in San Francisco. And it's not really that surprising to see the amount. And now the 49ers and Brock Purdy can just worry about playing football. They don't have to worry about contract negotiations. They don't have to worry about outside noise or even inside noise regarding the situation. And like I said, they can just stick to playing football. Now, obviously, Brock Purdy is kind of a polarizing quarterback. You either really think he's a good player or you really think that he's been a product of this system. Look, if you're playing quarterback, you're playing in a system. And if you make the system look great, like Brock Purdy has done the last 3 years, I know they went 6-11 last year. Not much of that is on Purdy. But like I said, if you're a factor, and as the quarterback, you're going to be the main factor in making the system look good, you need to be rewarded for it. And that's what San Francisco has done. People are also going to say, well, and it's kind of in this screen grab that I have here, the $53 million average annual value on the deal ranks tied for 7th at the position, behind only Dak, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Jordan Love, Trevor Lawrence, and Tua Tagovailoa. Now, one thing I'll say is that Brock has done something that 5 of those guys have not. He's actually made a Super Bowl. And on top of that, he's been to a conference championship game in 2022 where if he doesn't get injured, there's a really good chance that they actually win that game against Philadelphia in 2022. So, I mean, as far as comparing him to his peers, I think he gets paid a pretty fair value. And a lot of people are going to say, well, that $53 million average annual value, that puts him ahead of Jalen Hurts, who just won a Super Bowl. That puts him ahead of Patrick Mahomes, who has won multiple Super Bowls. That puts him ahead of Justin Herbert, who I think a lot of people would just say on pure talent, they would rather have Justin Herbert than Brock Purdy. But again, this is a guy in Brock Purdy who has elevated the status of this team. And look, where we were with the San Francisco 49ers for the last decade, it was Alex Smith. It was Colin Kaepernick. We thought it might have been Jimmy Garoppolo for some time. And then you throw in the other random names that you have in there, like CJ Beathard, or you have Nick Mullins for a short period of time. Brock Purdy has brought a stabilizing force to this position that hasn't really been experienced for the last decade, like I said. So that is kind of where the value of his contract comes in as well. It's just the stableness now that the 49ers have. And look, it was a bad year for San Francisco last year. There's not really much you can say about it. But, I mean, Debo was hurt. George Kittle wasn't his usual self, even though he had probably his best year as a pro since, I believe, 2020 or 2019. George Kittle had a great year last year. We haven't really seen a fully healthy George Kittle in 3 or 4 years, really. And so it's kind of like this team around Brock Purdy has a little bit been deteriorating due to injuries, and we saw it in the backfield as well, and that was highly on the radar of the 49ers, I think. Christian McCaffrey goes down. Jordan Mason, when he comes in, he still goes down. Isaac Urendo, he goes down. You have all of these contributing factors to why the 49ers were 6-11 last year, and I really just don't think it was Brock Purdy's fault. So going forward for the 49ers in terms of how this affects their cap, now the numbers haven't fully come out. The deal was done yesterday. We know the full guarantees. We know the total guarantees and the total value of the contract. But as far as cap hits, I'm just going to say that it's going to be 50 plus mil each year probably in a cap hit, right? If his average annual value is $53 million, his cap hit in 2026 and beyond is probably going to be at least that. And that's not even putting in roster bonuses, signing bonuses, any of that stuff. And honestly, contracts nowadays in the NFL, you kind of have to take them with a grain of salt, because as we're seeing with like Patrick Mahomes' contract, there's been so many void years tacked on so that the Chiefs can actually field a competitive team, because it was getting to a point, and it's gotten to a point in 2025 where Patrick Mahomes is a cap hit of $60+ million in 2026. So, the Chiefs have kind of had to scramble. Actually, he's almost north of $80 million as a cap hit. And so the Chiefs have kind of had to scramble these last few years to put a team around him, because they've had negative cap space when the free agency and the offseason comes around. And so San Francisco, I don't know if they'll have to do the same thing, a similar thing. They're obviously giving Purdy less money on a total scale. And so the good thing is San Francisco had their bad year in 24, right? And they were able to field a lot of draft selections in this year's draft. You have, probably the weaker side of the team last year was the defense. They really didn't perform well as a team in general, but they used their first 5 selections on defensive players last year. That kind of lets you know where they feel they needed to improve. They still did add a few players on offense at skill positions, like Jordan Watkins from Ole Miss, like Jordan James from Oregon, 2 guys that you hope can replace Deebo Samuel and Jordan Mason from last year. And obviously, you still have George Kittle. You still have Ricky Pearsall. You still have Jawan Jennings. You hope in 2025 you still have Christian McCaffrey at somewhat, 80 to 90% of what he was in 2023. And this is a pretty good team if you have that, right? This is a pretty good team if they stay healthy. And with Brock Purdy at the quarterback spot, they have a pretty good chance of getting back to a Super Bowl and actually winning one. This is a pretty wide open NFC. And Philly, the team that just won the Super Bowl, they lost a lot of talent on their team. They're not going to be anywhere near the same, in my opinion, as they were in 2024. And I don't think they're winning the Super Bowl either. And so, to me, it's kind of San Francisco compared to everybody else. Yes, 2024 was a down year, but I think that was kind of the perfect time for that to happen, so they could get more premium picks. They could get a lot more selections in general through trades. And yeah, I think San Francisco's in a pretty good spot after this deal. They didn't go over their head with the contract value, and I think they were working with a pretty easy guy to work with in Brock Purdy. And now they're pretty set for the future.